realignment, media days, Major League Baseball, and more ACC sports. That's Will Ogenin. I'm Jim Quist. This is ACC Nation. Let's get into realignment. We got into this really hot and heavy a couple of weeks ago when it first broke, Will, and like everything, because there's so little sports news going on, it became this rage. And we had our guests on. We had different people talking about things. We have reflected on what's going on in the Pac-12. We've reflected on how it will impact Virginia Tech with Mike Barber. But let's get real here for a second. Everybody is still talking. There seems to be some bad blood among fans who go, our team ought to be breaking away from the SEC. We ought to be taking off for the Big Ten. Blah, blah, blah. Not happening. Just that simple.
Yep. The comments made by Commissioner Greg Sankey of the SEC at the media days on Monday pretty much said that the grant of rights was pretty much going to be impossible to get around. And that pretty much says all you need to know.
Exactly. I mean, when you take a close look at it, neither one of us are lawyers. We deal with, in some capacity or another, and the stuff that we do every day, legal issues, but not to the level of taking grant of rights and dissecting it and going, oh, this makes sense. And about 99.9% of the people who are out in the world, same thing. So anybody who proclaims that they know what's going to happen, or you can break that or whatever. We've got a friend who is an attorney who has some concept. We've talked to him about different things. We've talked to him about similar stuff. And he says, all contracts can be broken. Mm-hmm. This one apparently is so ironclad. Nobody really wants to take the financial hit. And that's the key.
Yep.
That there's such a big chunk of money that you're going to have to give up in order to break this grant of rights in the ACC, that everybody's gone, well, and then the folks in the Big Ten and the SEC are looking at it and going, yeah, you're not worth that much to us to help you out. So you're going to have to go on your own. Here's what I guess we come down to now. We're still talking about this ACC Pac-12, I'm going to use this nasty word, alliance. And there's the possibility that the grant of rights will not be broken, which can be done. But everybody's going, well, if they're going to quit doing this with ESPN and they're going to change the contract, well, the grant of rights is going to go what? No, doesn't work that way. Okay. So don't get all excited about this without really knowing what you're talking about. This contract with the ACC, ESPN, and potentially the Pac-12, which we're getting closer to maybe this becoming realistic. They can restructure this contract. Don't even have to touch the grant of rights aspect of it. Mm-hmm. And can have all of these teams sort of semi-merge or create some kind of loose affiliation or create a super conference. There's all kinds of possibilities here. And one of the things that, from my perspective, Will, and I really wanted to see what your thoughts were on this. Initially when you start thinking, okay, well, the ACC is basically East Coast with the exception of Notre Dame when they're playing all the other things other than football. Mm-hmm. Of course, Pac-12 is basically, Mountain Time and Pacific Coast time. So, all right. So you initially, if you're not processing this properly, you're seeing this as a conflict. I immediately see it as a plus, because we can start playing games on the East Coast and run through everything and finish up our schedule, and the Pac-12 gets started. And, there's this neat overlap in between.
Mhm.
It's possible. But it makes sense. You can have the ACC network basically set up to carry all of that. Now, I wanted to see what your thoughts were on that, and how that hit you, especially when you first heard it.
Yeah. Um, I am, I'll just be perfectly honest. I'm beyond done with realignment talk, but it's because like, you just to go back to what you said a moment ago, everyone stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night and they think they know everything now.
Yeah.
But when it's all said and done, it really is turning out to be a plus for the ACC right now. I mean, and you talked about it, the timing of everything. Now that USC and UCLA are going to be bound for the Big Ten in a couple of years, Big Ten games are going to be starting at 10 o'clock on the East Coast. People don't necessarily always stay up that late, and that's the biggest problem with West Coast athletics in general. They always start at like 10 o'clock at night, if not later, and people go to bed around that time, if not sooner. So there's nothing they can fix about that. Where they say with the ACC, games are ending at at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night. All of this really is proving to be a plus, like you said, for the ACC. I 100% agree with you there.
I think yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to make one other thing for those of you watching on audio, that there is a special guest with us this week.
Mm-hmm. That's right, Mr. Martin.
Yep.
He keeps on. He kind of is bouncing in and out because of our background.
Yep.
If we have too much movement or colors are a certain way, we don't have green screens. Okay,
Yep.
This is just a different type of setup. But he's
Mm-hmm.
kind of bouncing in and out. But I see Martin. Yeah. Yeah, that's Will's better half. Oh no! Wait a minute.
Wow.
Yeah, I have to be careful about that.
Yeah. Too bad. It's a good thing the true better half isn't in the vicinity to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be all over for me. Maybe you too. I don't know.
Yeah.
Depends on the reaction. The overall, I think that here's the one thing that does disturb me about realignment talk. There are multiple teams within the conference ACC that have been rumored to have been in discussions with Big Ten and SEC. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
That's business as usual. That is a smart thing to do.
Yeah.
Cover your rear.
Yep.
But here's where I really start having a problem. When you have fan pages, people who are blogging and basically making it out that, and then you have people like Paul Feinbaum throwing gas on the fire.
Ow.
Yeah, man. Talking about how certain teams, and he pointed to Florida State as being one of these teams, and there's been some rumor there, and also among Clemson as well. Some of the other teams that have been discussed have been North Carolina and Virginia. So there's 4 teams there that do appeal to Big Ten and SEC potentially, but it's not going anywhere. Okay,
right.
So, what I don't like is all of this talk from a certain element that keeps saying that, oh, we're disgusted with the ACC. We don't want to be a part of the ACC. We like to jump out of the ACC. We want to get away. Okay. Now look, I understand that from the angle of the revenue part, but past that,
yeah,
back it up here.
Right.
Significantly back that up, because karma can bite you. All right.
Yeah.
So be careful what you say and how you lay things out, because everybody else is listening. And if things play out a certain way, they're not going to forget that.
Right. Exactly. And those four schools you mentioned all have, a lot of, I guess you could say, like, attraction in some way. We talked about Florida State and Clemson. They have the football cachet. Carolina, obviously, in the same way, maybe not the same amount of success, but it's also a media market that neither the Big Ten or the SEC has. Same with Virginia, and that's what, a couple hours out of DC, and that's not. I mean, you're not obviously going to get Maryland if you're the SEC, for example, but you're getting close to the DC market. Plus, you're getting a school in Virginia that you're almost guaranteed to have a champion in something. And yeah, I mean, yeah, they're 3 years removed from a basketball championship. They've never won a football championship, but we're really talking about the non-revenue sports. That's something Virginia has always done really well, and is the non-revenue sports. And you can always, boast that.
There's, I guess when I start bouncing around, because we try to cover as much of the ACC as we possibly can, and we look at everything that's going on. And I read some comments from people talking about how it's going to impact their school, and some of the pie in the sky nonsense that I've read. Wow.
Yeah.
Some delusional people out there is all I can tell you. You're not bringing that much to it. And so, quit tossing this nonsense out there. I mean, sure, it generates clicks and everything like that, but it's not genuine. It's not genuine. And it's doing a disservice to, I think, your readers to generate this sort of chatter about this school, that school. I'm not going to name any in particular, talking about how they're going to go to the Big Ten, or they're going to go to the SEC, or they're going to go back to this conference or that. Stop.
Who wants to see Virginia play Missouri in football outside of those two fan bases?
Nobody.
Exactly.
Nobody. Let's bounce just for a moment. Let's go to the Major League Baseball draft, because we had 7 players out of the ACC that were picked up by teams. And I don't know if do you have that list near you?
Yep, right in front of me.
All right, go ahead and take that and roll with it. And let's talk about these players.
Okay. So, like I said, 7 players from the ACC were drafted in the first 2 rounds of the MLB draft. First one, Gavin Cross from Virginia Tech, an outfielder, is going to Kansas City, 9th overall pick. And then going 11th overall, Kevin Parada, the Georgia Tech, the catcher, to the Mets. So 2 first-round picks out of the ACC. Second round, you had Dalton Rushing, another catcher out of Louisville, going to the Dodgers. Max Wagner, third baseman from Clemson, to Baltimore at the 42nd pick. Parker Messick, Florida State, who is a pitcher, to the Cleveland Guardians. Tanner Scoble, a shortstop from Virginia Tech, at the 68th pick, the competitive balance round, is going to be taking his talents, about 20-25 minutes up the road where I was on Friday night at Minnesota at Target Field. And 2 picks later, Chandler Simpson, a shortstop from Georgia Tech, went to the Tampa Bay Rays. So yeah, nice showing for the AC, especially the 2 Techs, both Virginia Tech and Georgia Tech, representing. Remember, especially in Virginia Tech's case, that was one of the most successful seasons the baseball program's ever had, and it's showing here with these first 2 picks. And one of the things that really stood out to me, just outside of the ACC aspect of this, is the amount of players whose dads played in the MLB that were drafted. So watching baseball the way I did, seeing Matt Holliday's kid go first overall, Andrew Jones' kid go right after him. I think Luke Collier's kid went. There was somebody else, and it might have been Carl Crawford's kid. I think might have went. I can't remember. There was, and I think but seeing those, those are fairly recently retired players too. that just made me feel really old. But back to the ACC aspect, great showing for the ACC in those 2 rounds.
I every time I see you tweet about how it makes you feel old about something, I just sort of have a grin. I'm sorry. It's it is what it is, my man.
Yeah, exactly.
Welcome to my world. Oh man. Yeah, a very good draft for the ACC, and as you mentioned, the 2 techs. And congratulations to all those players. Hope they do really well. I'm sure they're going to. They were outstanding players while they were in the conference, and they were a blast to watch. So. Coming up on Wednesday and Thursday, the ACC will have their football kickoff, which basically is a media event. And you can watch this, by the way. It's going to be on the ACC network, and mostly everybody has that now. We can't complain about that.
Yep.
Well, we could complain about it, but this is always a pretty fun thing to watch if you've got the time. It's during the day. Unfortunately, a lot of people are working, so you can't watch this. But if you record it and play back later, sometimes you'll pick up some tidbits there that they're pretty interesting. They have coaches and a couple of players that come in, and some interesting players. And this year, I am very excited to hear what some of these quarterbacks that are going to be there are going to have to say. So, and I mean, if you look at this list, you have this one popped up on your screen as well, by any
It'll
chance?
take me just a couple of seconds to have it up, but just before while I get there, just imagine the preseason teams and how, like, there's going to be so many quarterbacks left off of it who probably deserve to be on there.
Yeah, exactly. The ACC this year and last year actually loaded with quarterbacks.
Yeah,
it's crazy how many. This is Will, I'm telling you right now, the ACC is loaded, I think, more this year than they were last, which I thought last year had tons of potential, and most teams did better than I expected. I think this year could be a really surprise breakout for this conference football wise. If you've got that list up, if you take a look at the people that are coming, like with Boston College and Clemson and Duke and everybody else, run down some of the people that you find are going to be interesting. Some of the quarterbacks and other people like, Boston College has got a couple of great players coming there.
Yeah, we're not going to run down every single player that's going to come in, but yeah, some of the ones, I mean, you talked about it with Boston College. Both Zay Flowers and Phil Dracovic are going to be there, integral parts of the Boston College offense. Dabo's bringing DJ Uiagalelei, and there's going to be questions for him about his status at quarterback with the incoming freshman coming in. Obviously, Duke is bringing some couple of defensive players, including Shaka Hayward, who we talked about with Connor O'Neill last week, who will be preseason All ACC. Mike Norvell's bringing along Jordan Travis, someone who has really improved his game last season, especially as a passer. He's going to be interesting to talk to kind of see where his mindset is. I'm a little surprised Jeff Sims isn't coming for Georgia Tech. He's bringing tight end Dylan Leonard, Dante Smith, the running back, and Zamari Walton, a defensive back. And Sims is the best player on the team. I don't think there's any doubt about that. So it's kind of curious to see what the reasoning behind that is. Moving on, Malik Cunningham obviously is going to be representing Louisville. He's a player who took a big step forward after a down 2020. Tyler Van Dyke for Miami is going to be there, along with Will Mallory, who we talked about with Manny Navarro a few weeks back, about somebody who could be in for a big year. North Carolina, Josh Downs, somebody who is in the conversation for best receiver in the league. He'll be there. NC State, Dave Doran's bringing in Devin Leary, and along with Isaiah Moore and Drake Thomas, a couple of guys who are going to be key cogs for a really experienced NC State defense. To the surprise of nobody, Pitt's bringing along a couple of defensive guys, including Servasi Dennis, who's one of the better linebackers in the league. Dino Babers is bringing Garrett Schrader, who's going to be, going to be asked to do something completely different this year at Syracuse with new offensive coordinator Robert Anae. And you can go back to our conversation with Jackie Franchuli about our feelings about Robert Anae. But it's going to be interesting. Virginia's bringing along Brennan Armstrong, somebody who should end up on one of the preseason All ACC teams, along with Keaton Thompson, who is still listed as a football player, even though I think he'll be lined up more as a receiver this year. Virginia Tech's bringing along Dax Hollifield, who I feel like has been there for at least 8 years now.
Yeah.
But I think this is his COVID year, so I think he's done after this. And Dave Clawson's bringing along Sam Hartman, another kid who's, in the conversation for All ACC. I mean, there's probably 6-7 quarterbacks who probably deserve to be on the All ACC team, but you can only fit so many.
Yeah, there really needs to be some kind of restructuring when you have this amount of quality players in a conference, and I'm not just talking about your quarterbacks. There's a lot of quality players there. I think they need to start looking at it as being okay. And people will go, well, you can't give everybody a trophy. That's not what I'm saying that you do here. I'm just saying that you recognize them for their talent. It's one thing that we can go on. Everybody can do this. You can go into theacc.com and you can get into when you select football, you can get into the stats aspect of it and follow how everybody is performing throughout the season. So if you didn't know that, this is a plus for you. It's something that we look at on a regular basis to see how each player is performing. And you also have to kind of weigh that a little bit with, the game circumstances, etc. You can't just totally go by, this guy's leading stats, so he must be the best player in the, it doesn't work quite that way.
Yeah. And that's why Brennan Armstrong probably isn't on the preseason Heisman stuff, because he put up tons of stats last year, but he's not going to do that again this year. But he still doesn't take away from the fact that he's still a really good quarterback.
Indeed. And I cannot see with that extra year at Virginia, I cannot see him not being at least no later than the third in the NFL. I mean, I can see him a first or second, to be honest with you. I think he's got that talent.
Yeah, he there have been some mock drafts out there that have him as a first round pick, but we're a long ways from that right now. He needs to show up and prove it again in some capacity, and then maybe he can be a first day pick.
Exactly. Yeah.
Where's the second day pick?
Just see where all that happens. Well, those are the people that are going to be at the ACC football kickoff, which is essentially the media days. It depends on what you want to call it. It's primarily media people coming in there. I would expect, I'm going to throw this out and get some people excited here. Since we were talking about realignment, I expect something major to be announced during this. I think that there's more that has been going on behind the scenes than anybody has any clue about. And it would not surprise me in the least to have a major announcement that'll probably just put people back in their seats a little bit. So look for that. If you can watch it, if something comes up and it's going on during the day, because that's something I'm going to be watching. Basically going to be sitting in front of a screen all day watching that and typing stuff. So if something comes up, I will be more than glad to share that on our Twitter account. So be looking for that. That's my gut, Will. Who knows, right?
Right. It
But
could be, it could just be business as usual, and
yeah,
just a lot of hearsay and whatever shenanigans that go on. But
shenanigans.
is there really anything you want Jim Phillips to say during all this?
I I would love for him to actually say that they have come to, this is me, okay? Just me. Just me. I would love for him to come out and say, we have come to an agreement with the Pac-12 that we are going to, in conjunction with ESPN, and that there is a rewriting of the contract, that's more money coming to our teams, et cetera. And see where that goes. And I, my gut just tells me that something's lurking here. There's just been so much stuff, and then when it goes quiet for a while, that's when I start really going, something happening, something's going on. And to be honest with you, Will, a lot of people have talked badly about Jim Phillips, and even Swafford for that matter. They have done some things, and I think especially Jim has done some things that I believe have been immensely just solid investments in the future of this conference. We'll see how that works out.
Yeah. And honestly, I just don't know what else there is for Jim Phillips to do at this point. I mean, you talked about, yeah, maybe, an agreement with some sort of quote unquote alliance with the Pac-12. Yeah. But is there, like, when we look at, adding teams, and you and I and Chris have had this discussion, in our thread, there's really not anybody else out there that you can elevate from a G5 school that would really make sense right now.
No.
All of them, all the good ones got gobbled up by the Big 12,
Right.
in the coming years. Because you didn't tell me like a Cincinnati would be a great fit for the ACC, for example, or UCF. Another school for Florida, out of Florida, that would just spitballing. But yeah, there's not much else out there that can really move the needle for the ACC in terms of expansion.
And let me just point this out too. And I'm going to, just two things I'm going to say. Number one, I saw this tweet, and I kind of followed through the string. I went down a rabbit hole. But I always like the discussion that West Virginia fans have. They're passionate about their team, so I give them a lot of credit there. But this whole thing about coming into the ACC ain't going to happen. It's just not. It would have happened by now.
Yeah.
And really, I hate to say it, West Virginia does not bring anything to the table. That is not discounting your sports program.
Right.
What it is saying that it has to be from a financial standpoint, and you don't have the market, the television market,
Exactly,
to bring that money in.
Morgantown is not exactly a huge television market.
Yeah, I really wish that it could be different, because I think that West Virginia actually, in some ways, in football and basketball especially, would be a great competitor for Pitt, Virginia Tech. I mean, there's some additions there. I think that
the West Virginia Pitt or West Virginia Tech rivalries would be great, or on a yearly basis. But what else is there after that? Everything else would be kind of manufactured at best.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I hate to be the one that throws water on that, but I mean, I've seen so much stuff, and again, this is fan talk, and I just have to be realistic. So I don't see it. The other one I'm not going to get into. I'm just going to let that one go. I just decided that at this very moment, I'm just going to let that one go. It's probably safer. And so, you're right, Will. I don't see anybody else out there that, at this point, that makes any sense. Maybe after the fact, and the last one that's out there lurking is Notre Dame, and I don't see Notre Dame going anywhere other than independent
Yep.
for at least a couple more years.
And you see the report that they're seeking $75 million a year from NBC to stay independent. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know if $75 million is a wise investment on NBC's part for maybe 8 games a year, because unless they, are all games are exclusively going to be on NBC or Peacock, you'd have to, but then there's the ACC aspect of it too. So it's a very convoluted.
Yeah. I don't see that. I don't see them going anywhere for a couple of years.
Yeah.
I mean, and I get in part why they do that. Plus, they're also tied, though this is not as tight as the grant of rights, but they're still tied to the ACC. If they're going to go to a conference, they're still tied that way. So they're just going to remain independent and go that route. But I tell you, certainly Notre Dame would be a plum for any conference.
Yeah, but like you said, they're going to be independent until one of the conferences drags them away while they're kicking and screaming.
Yeah, basically. Yes. Hey, we want to thank everybody who watches us on YouTube. We want to invite you to do the same thing. Make sure that you subscribe. Also, all the listeners worldwide, I tell you what, our numbers have just gone through the roof with all the football previews that we have. This is an exception week because basically I'm taking a little bit of time off. That's part of it. And we'll have football previews coming up in our next episode, and we'll get back into the groove of talking about what's going on with the ACC teams. So stick with us. All you folks who are listening to us on streaming radio worldwide, thank you. I mean, the numbers are staggering. Everywhere that people are listening. And also, if you're subscribing to our podcast, thank you for doing that too. Those numbers also going through the roof. We appreciate you. We know you're there. If you want to drop us a message, all you simply just click on our website, the contact page. We don't collect any information from you, so don't worry. Just you can send us a message, say whatever you want to, and we listen. Same thing on the YouTube side. If you have a comment in regard to whatever is going on there, we love to hear from you. Sometimes we don't respond. It doesn't mean that we don't care. It just means that we're really busy. Okay. So keep doing that. And make sure you check out our website, accnation.net. Until our next football preview, that's Will Ogenin. I'm Jim Quist.
Let's go.
Cheers.